What's up, guys? On our next episode of Boulevard here, we have Chris Martinez and our other host, Rudy Aragon, of course. And, of course, everybody knows me, Corey Ringo. So we're here at Chris's shop today, and we're going to talk with him and see what he has and what he's been doing and kind of his backstory and all that good stuff. So I'm going to let Chris get talking here and introduce himself.
My name is Chris Martinez. I'm 23 years old. I'm born and raised here in Albuquerque, New Mexico, and I'm the owner of JOEZ SHOP.
Nice. And JOEZ SHOP has been around for how long? Where does it come from, the name JOEZ SHOP?
So my dad started this business roughly 10 plus years ago, and it started off with another business name, but everybody and all his friends around him would say, hey, let's go to JOEZ SHOP. And it was real catchy because no matter what the name was, everybody knew it as JOEZ SHOP, you know, because my father's name is Joe. And that's just, it kicked off and it stuck ever since. So now we're JOEZ SHOP.
Sweet. Well, I mean, you have quite the workload here, and we see some
We're very thankful for all the projects that we have going on here, and we're just, you know, super blessed that it's all here and we're able to still work through all this craziness that's going on out there in this world.
Right.
And you said you are 23 years old.
I am 23 years old.
So he's a youngster in this
youngster.
game. And if for those of you that don't know, Chris's dad's Joe Martinez. Some call him Tint Joe, some call him Glass Joe, whatever you want to call him. But Joe's been around for a while. He used to have a 48 Chevy. He's had hundreds of vehicles probably. He's right up there with Jimmy, I think. But I think the apple didn't fall far from the tree, and Chris is kind of following in his dad's footsteps, and we kind of want to hear where it's going.
Definitely.
And how long ago did you start?
So, well, I could tell people that I've started, you know, more than half my life because I really have. You know, my dad has had me in the shop since pretty much birth. I have pictures of me holding me around his car scene, or he was painting, or whether it was I was in the office, and I was always there. I was always in the mix of it all. So, growing up around the car shows scene too was also a real big motivation for me because not only was I able to see the different styles of cars and different cultures and stuff of that sort, I was able to actually see the smile on people's faces when they've seen these cars, and I thought that was more appraisal to me than anything, as far as getting the wow factor from these type of cars, you know, and I thought that was something to strive for, you know, and we live that everyday basis as far as our work. We really want to let people appreciate the work and not just see it as a big picture, you know, see what goes into it.
And I think that, you know, the end result is, again, like you said, that wow, right?
Yeah.
You know, to give a customer their car back and have it completed, you know, with your craftsmanship or your dad's craftsmanship, the two of you, in doing that, I think that's the biggest reward you can have.
Right.
Just because it's your work that's out there, you know. I think Corey can agree with, you know, photography. There's some trades that I do as well. So that's a huge thing, especially a car. There's a few things in your life, right, that are huge investments in a car. Custom at that is one of them. So
definitely.
So what is your style? What is it, lowriders? Is it customs? Is it hot rods?
I've got a lot of this, you know, of course, with my style of my car and being the fact that it's low and lower to the ground, it doesn't necessarily attack the lowrider scene. But a lot of people that don't know the car world, they'll immediately call it a lowrider because it's so low to the ground. But realistically, we got our style from California, and in that sense, it was more lowrider back then, but they converted to this California style custom. And now we are really in that custom world where we don't just put air ride on vehicles. You know, we're doing chop tops to the roof and shaving emblems and door handles and all that kind of sort to change the overall look of the vehicle. And our goal is to make it not too custom or anything to where people notice the difference. We want them to look at it and say, wow, was that car made like that from factory?
Right.
And when we nail that, then that's when I get the real compliments, and people ask and say, you know, what it looked like before, and when I show them pictures of what it looked like or where it was, they really get to see the difference and resemblance there. Right.
And in talking before, you said some people are a little baffled that being so young that you built the car. You guys, this beautiful 50 51
Chevy.
51
business coupe.
Chevy business coupe. This red one back here with the flames. If you've attended any of Corey's cruises, you've probably seen it out there.
Blowing
Super
flames.
Yeah, blowing flames. Super
Trying not
badass
to
ride.
cause trouble.
I mean, I walked in and you know, I just met Chris today, and some of the videos that I've shot, I'm like, oh, there's that. Oh, wow, you're so young. So, I mean, kudos to you, because that's a huge accomplishment. You know, I think there's, you know, so many people out there that, I mean, I know me personally, just trying to do and learn things, you know, in regards to my own vehicle, it's super hard. So, you know.
And that's where I get a lot of the appraisal from for being young, is because half the people that come to our shop are either twice my age or in their older 30s, are trying to bring back the life of a project or a forgotten project that they started. And either they don't know how, or they don't have the tools to know how. So when they come to me and we do it, or when we bust out the work and they see you know, a youngster doing it, and I explain to them as I go, I think it's pretty cool to know that that these guys are looking towards a youngster to have stuff done for them. And and like you were saying, yeah, I do get a lot of people that are in the wows for me being so young, and I'm sure Corey's seen it too. But when I even just go to the gas station with the 50, there's people out there that, you know, are so in disbelief that I own the vehicle. They'll ask me, where did I inherit it from, or who gave you, or who built that car for you? And when I start explaining to them about little details that I've done to the car, then their minds click and say, wow, this kid really knows his stuff. And I think that's where I feel accomplished, is as far as being a youngster, is because all these older guys that have been doing it for more than my life can appraise my work.
And that's the thing about nowadays, is so many of these kids are just worried about video games and YouTube and these games and that games and whatever. They're not building hot rods. I think a lot of these kids are more worried about getting a Prius or something like that than they would be building a full-on custom car. So it's cool to see you doing that. What made you, I know you talked about seeing people's reactions and stuff. Is it following in your dad's footsteps? Is it, what made you get in? Because I see so many people, so many guys that are like, oh, my kid, I'll never let him do what I did as a whatever. And then
it's funny you bring that up, is because my father swore up and down he'll never let me follow down his footsteps, because it is a very hard and tough business to be in. You know, it's you know, financially it's never always there, and the workmanship that we do in here isn't always appraised. As far as financial wise too, you know, so there's a lot of stuff that we do above and beyond to make our work look and present better. So as far as you saying, like youngsters not being into the car scene and being into the video games and stuff, I kind of felt like it was reverse psychology for me. My parents always said, you know, we're going to put you in sports, and I excelled in every sport I've tried, and I've been everywhere from football, baseball, soccer, you name it, and I excelled really well in all those, except for when it came down to grades in about high school. I was a football player, and I loved the sport, and I, you know, and as a youngster, I thought that's where my career would end up, is being a sports player. And I was already into the cars still, don't get me wrong, but in school, once I started getting bad grades and I noticed it was really hard to maintain those grades to stay in the sports, I kind of slowly dropped out of that. And but at the same time, I was really into the cars, and in this classroom, I really felt small. I felt like I had boundaries that I wasn't able to reach, and I was only supposed to learn in one direction. And always growing up, I was always outside the box thinker. So when it came down to my dad telling me, you know, if it's either school or you're gonna, I had a 58 Chevy. I don't know if you remember that one. It's a gold, pagan gold car. You might have seen it in a couple of the car shows. And that car was my high school car. It's a car I had been building through my high school days. And when it came to the point where my grades were starting to drop real low, my dad made me a deal and said, either you keep this vehicle and show me good grades, and we'll paint it and we'll keep on going with it. But the minute that your grades start dropping or you drop out, which I eventually did, we will have to sell the car. And it was real hard for me to do, but I knew that there was some point in school where I felt like I was, like I said, I was just so trapped. And no matter how much I tried or extracurriculums I was doing to get caught up on work at school, I was just falling behind. And so after school, I'd come to the shop and help clean and just little things here and there. When I started realizing that I was learning more in the shop that may help me in the future than I was in school.
And that's one of the things is that I always had a problem in school was auto mechanics. I was always in auto mechanic class, but other than that, English, math, I did all right in math, but it was back when I went to school 30 years ago, it was different. We don't have all these charter schools and these things. You want to go make movies, you want to build cars, they have different. And it's awesome because they're helping the kids focus, because not every kid learns from a book. We talked about this earlier.
Yes.
I can read something 10 times in a book and still not figure out how to do it, but I do it once and I'll remember it for the rest of my life.
Exactly,
and that's the thing is a lot of these schools don't understand is that's the way a lot of people learn. Not everybody learns by reading a book and listening to the teacher.
Yeah.
We all learn by listening to the teacher, which is your dad, but
right. And there's times that I don't listen to him either until we put our hands in on it, and
I'm sure that's true. So you being basically a custom car builder these days, we've talked about some of the cars here that you've chopped and stuff like that.
Definitely.
Who other than your father is your
inspiration?
Yeah, your inspiration. Who do you look up to? What famous builders that people can go and say, I see how he does?
So there's a few out there. I feel like I was born in the wrong era from the get-go. So there's a lot of guys I look up to, like Gene Winfield, Larry Watson, Bill Hines. A lot of those guys that all had cars that were done pretty much new back in its time, but we're already customizing them and changing them from factory to make them look and appear in a different style, or rather it be better or worse. And a lot of those guys I've seen, like the Grapevine was one of my biggest cars that I liked, and that was a car that was painted by Gene Winfield. And that car, just to me, it felt like it was made that way from factory. So when I seen that and I knew that it was already customized, I said, one day I want to build something that wows people as much as that car did. And that car was in magazines, and it's a real famous car and so forth. So I said, just set our goal high, and hopefully that, we reach it one day. And that's kind of one of the people that I have been looking up to as far as paint-wise and style-wise. But as far as friends and family around us, I call them family because, like I said, it takes a whole wolf pack to raise, a young. And my dad wasn't the only one there that was able to direct me, because there's some stuff that he got stuck on and didn't know because he was self-taught. So there's friends out there like Aaron Lovato, U.S. Customs. He taught me a whole lot of tricks to the trade that schools couldn't offer at the time, and even to this day we still learn from each other, and I find that really what's the word I'm looking for,
inspiration.
That's very inspirational, because not only sometimes do we teach him or teach them something, they were able to teach us something, and it's all by collaborating our thoughts.
You're bouncing ideas off each other, and I think that's a huge thing in the cruises and people getting out. A lot of that is talking about your car. Oh, let me see what you've done. Oh, how did you do that? And I know that the first time that I saw your car, and us talking about it earlier, I'm like, how do you get those flamethrowers on there, and what did you need to do? And it's super cool. I'm very much, that is my style as well, and I totally understand when you say, oh, well, I want to make it look like it came from the factory like that, but not everybody understands, right, the different styles that we have. I get called, my truck is always called the lowrider as well. I'm like, it's not a lowrider, but
you roll with it sometimes. Yeah, definitely. And I know
a lot of times I spend too much time explaining why it's not.
Exactly. And I think that's you said that that you usually do that at the gas station. You're like, I don't really have a whole lot of time to tell you if I'm
you
not
believe
even sure
me,
if you're
that
gonna believe me.
you believe me. If not, exactly. There's times that I
so this one is your second, I guess, custom build. You mentioned the gold one, and then there's the.
I've had a few different cars that led up to the 50. The gold 58 was by far the one that I had furthest done. I had a 63 Suburban before that.
Oh, nice.
And that was a full panel, and I pretty much I traded a little moped bike for it at the time, and it was complete. And I got a lot of my trading game from a guy named Jimmy Catetas, and I've watched him from the day I can remember, even seeing trade and sell with my dad, and that kind of motivated me to do the same. So when I traded up this little bike for this full-size vehicle that had an engine, it had a small block in it, but it wasn't running, and I knew it had potential and everything, and so I spent every little spare change I had, lunch money. I was still in school, And I saved up all my lunch money, I'd buy a part, and eventually I ended up with this running vehicle, and I had air ride on it, and I had Supremes on it, and it was real low. And I loved the vehicle. You know, it was pretty cool to know that I got that far from something so little.
Right.
So what I ended up doing with that vehicle is I posted it for sale just to see what happened, test the waters, and this guy out of Salina, Georgia bought this vehicle from me, and I'm 16 years old.
Wow.
And he gave me full asking price. I thought it was
Nice.
a scam. He sent me money in the mail or in a Walmart deal, and I went over there, and the down payment was there, and my dad was like, "This is crazy, you know, he's doing his own thing. He's 16 years old," and I sold it and cashed out on it, and immediately after that, I was hooked. I just knew I was gonna start doing the trade game and sell and trade, and after that, I started, you know, like setting my goals high and see how close I get to them, and before you know it, I was reaching those and setting new goals, and
Sweet.
I ended up with the 50 Chevy, which was a complete shell, and I, like I was explaining to you earlier, I had a little hoopty to get me to and from school and stuff. My parents had gotten me. It was a hand-me-down from one of my sisters. And eventually I cleaned up it was a Honda Civic. I ended up cleaning it up so well that I sold it for almost twice the money that my parents paid for it.
The natural hustle. Where do you get that from, right?
Born and raised in that. But and my mom thought it was crazy because I sold a running vehicle to start building the 50, and the 50 had no motor, no trans, the body wasn't even on the frame.
Right.
And when we literally look at it at Cletus Riddell's shop, there was weeds past the roof. We had to dig it out of there. And so people thought I was really crazy for doing this, but in my mind, in the back of my mind, I knew what potential it could possibly have.
Right.
Because I was already looking at the grapevine, and I was already trying to scout out a 50s car to build a custom out of.
So explain to us a few of the things that you have done, like major modifications. I mean, most of them look stock if you don't know the vehicle. So
well executed, that's what I was trying to go for.
And that's exactly right. So what are some of your major mods to it that made it where it's at?
So when the car first came to life, I put the small block, got it running. I had a frame already that was off the car, and it was a bare frame. We already had started the Mustang 2 on this frame, and that was really where I got the stance from. I started with the wheels set up, and I got it lowered, and once I seen it on the ground, I was in the up and down. A lot of people were saying, "Don't chop it, chop it." And I'm 16 years old, and I'm curious as hell, you know. And I mean, I'm probably running closer to 17 at age now, really curious, and seeing all these vehicles online and car shows. Me and my dad always look up on YouTube from California, all these different types of cruises and styles. I thought it would be a good idea to cut the roof off, and I got my dad's windshield cutting blade one day, and I cut the glass out of it. The glass was good in the front and rear, and I just said hell with it, cut it out, and that's when I committed, and I chopped the car down all on my own when I was just about 17. I was still 16 years old.
Wow.
And that was the first modification on it that I knew that was going to set the car off from others. And I waited a year after I chopped it. We got it on the road to hit some shows. There was a show that we were really wanting to go to kind of show off some of the work that was done to it, and I fabricated 50 Pontiac taillights in the rear, and that was the only other custom thing I've done to the car yet, is other than the chop and the suspension. And I didn't like the way it looked. It looked too round to me, and and as going through all these swap meets and stuff with my father, we were able to see different taillights and stuff. And you know, one day I was like, those 55 taillights are pretty cool, and I think I could fabricate them. And everyone that would typically use a 55 taillight, they would use a half end of a car, and I never had the type of money to go out and buy rear quarters of a 55 Chevy. So there I go with some pencil rod, you know, for $12.99 or whatever from the metal shop, and I start bending it around my knee, and before I knew it, I had the 55 taillights on there, and I all from scratch, complete sheet metal and pencil rod. So and a lot, like I said, to this day, people still think I cut up a 55 Chevy, and it's built from scratch.
Wow.
That was one of the first mods I remember you doing, was other than the chop. Was that? I mean, I've seen the car in so many phases over the years, which
Never
is a good
ending.
thing. But you being kind of like Jimmy, always flipping cars, and then this car and that car, and I'll be like, "What car are you on this week?" And he's like, "Oh, I got this one." And I know you still do that, but not. You've actually hung on to this one, and it's a cool thing. You think you'll hold on to it for
until we get something else out there to show our workmanship, because right now that car is really our promotion of the shop. When I'm able to talk to people about what we do, not a lot of times do they believe me because I'm such a youngster. But when I start showing them the work that we do, rather than just pulling out a picture, I could show them my car.
Right.
Then they really get that wow and belief, you know, and that's when it.
Well, it's definitely a beautiful car. That's for damn sure.
Yeah, thank you.
You don't see a lot of them around
Yeah.
New Mexico, that
Yeah.
style, and that's what's nice about it. And a lot of people think it's red.
Yeah.
You even thought it's red. But what color is
It's
it?
similar.
It's actually candy magenta over a pig and
Wow.
gold base.
I was gonna say a pink, which close enough. It's a red, pink,
Yeah, it's-
magenta.
And then
but-
depending on which way you photograph it, it looks more red than it does on the pink
Correct.
side.
Right.
Depending on what side of the day.
And like Corey said, he's seen it in so many different ways. You know, we were trying to execute that color from the get-go,
Right.
and everything on the car was kind of accidental accomplishment with it, or how would you say it? And when we first did the chop and everything, we painted the roof, and it was more of a bubblegum pink, and it wasn't the color we were really going after at
Right.
all. It ended up being too
Yeah.
bright.
And I remember the car was kind of a satin white.
It was it was almost
a primer white.
Yeah, it was just a primer buff or
Yeah.
something at the time, or primer white, and the car got a lot of attention that way also, and that's when I noticed, you know, I couldn't leave it like this. You know, there were some people that were contemplating, is it a rat rod, or is it a custom, or is it a lowrider?
Right.
So after I started hearing all the feedback from the stage it was in, I knew immediately after that summer I was going to tear it down and top what I've already done with it. That's when I did the 55 headlights, fabricated from scratch as well. And little things I started doing as far as shaving. I didn't have a lot of the chrome for it, a lot of the side moldings or anything, so I immediately shaved all that kind of stuff off of it because I didn't have it and I couldn't afford to replace it. So we shaved it, and it working out for the car because it actually it accents just right.
I mean, you're obviously your 50 is just amazing. Would be super cool. You know, we'll show you some better pictures of it. That way you can kind of get a feel for, you know, the craftsmanship that Chris puts out there. What builds do you have going on right now? Do you have any? You know, I guess the shop's full.
Right.
But I know that, you know, a couple of these are, you know, one's your dad's. This one just came in. This was this a 51?
Yeah, this is also a 51 Chevy, and yeah, we did a lot of work to this car here also, and I do specialize in suspension, so I do a lot of Mustang 2 suspensions in the front, and that eliminates all the old drum brakes and stuff, and gets you the ability to get disc brakes for bigger engines. A lot of people are putting small blocks in their cars and stuff, so you want that stopping power also. And this car right here, we did the 4-link notch and everything on this one. I did all the sheet metal work on the floors.
Lays out really nice.
And yeah, and lower the better, you know. That's always.
I agree.
I agree.
Yeah.
Oh, this from a guy that drives a 4-wheel drive all day.
My daily driver is a 4-wheel drive. My 53 lace frame, my 66 lace frame. That's where
I'm
it's
just giving you shit. So you guys do paint, you do fabrication, you do suspensions.
Definitely.
What do you like to do?
Personally, I think a lot of the functionality of the vehicles are kind of lacked on a lot of vehicles. A lot of people will go and half-ass suspension or so forth. Not necessarily saying it's half-ass. They do it to their ability with their budget or whatever it is. So what I really like to do, and what I mostly prefer is suspension work and metal fabricating, because with the suspension work, you could get a vehicle that hasn't been on the road for over 60 years and become a daily driver on the road.
Modernize it,
Modernize
new brakes,
it.
new
That's
everything, just make it more reliable. And
Exactly, and that's key in a vehicle as far as driving it, because you can make them as pretty as a diamond as you want, but if they're going to function properly is another thing.
I've seen some cars that they look beautiful on the outside, and then you get under them, and you're like, whoa.
And so would you rather, I guess, bring an original chassis back to life? I mean, there's a lot of shops out there that they have kits. You can get a front end kit, you can get a rear end. Obviously, in laying some of these cars on the floor, you do need to notch them.
Yes.
So in doing that, do you prefer just, you know, fabricating your own notches, your own front cross members, or do you have vendors that you use in order to make that happen?
Some depending on the like every project's a little bit different. Everyone's budget's also a little different. So
Right.
when it comes down to leaving the stock suspension, like you're saying, or leaving the stock frame of that factor, it's always best to, because a lot of people will do what they call as a subframe, and they'll use like a 90s Camaro front end on them. And don't get me wrong, that's where my dad started in his business back then, was doing that type of work. As we learned over the time, it's actually more harder to do than the Mustang 2s that they're selling now or so forth, that were almost a bolt-in style kit that keeps your frame the same. Because after you cut the front end off to do a subframe, you lose your radiator support brackets, you lose fender mounts, everything will change, and you'll have to weld all that back in to get it proper.
Right.
So yeah, we do like to use our own notches, because like I said, every car is a little different, you know, depending on how low they want to go or how high the notches got to be. So
Yeah.
As far as buying cross members, they pretty much come to each particular vehicle. So
Right.
buying the cross member is usually easier than trying to make it.
Right.
But as far as the rear suspension, they're usually built from scratch every time.
And are most of the builds that you guys do here at the shop, are they full custom, as in, I mean, are they mostly bagged? Are they static? What do your customers usually prefer?
So we have a little bit of variety of different customers in here. We get a little bit of both. We get some that want slam stuff, and we get some guys that want a little more of the hot rod or street rod style. And we're not prejudiced about any of them, because if everybody liked our particular style, then it would be boring to us. We'd see the same thing over and over again. So we really do like to see different stuff and be able to put our hands on different types of work, because it kind of gets boring from time to time if you're just working on the same style thing. You know, if I was just doing Mustang 2 suspensions all day long, I'd get bored, because it's just literally just welding all day. So when I do sheet metal work, patch panel work and stuff, I get a little more
Breaks up the
happier.
monotony.
Yeah, it does. It helps out a lot, and keeps our mind focused too. That way we're not just so stuck in the same loops. So seeing different cars and different styles is also helpful in that.
And this is, I mean, the shop is full-time gig, right?
Yeah, it's full-time gig. Like I said, I've been doing it personally in the shop for over 10 years now.
Wow.
And so my dad teaching me a lot of the trades and tricks to his trade, I've just been perfecting them every day. You know, he teaches me something and I learn hands-on, so everything's a little bit different.
And I've seen you build everything from bicycles to full custom, so
Yeah.
it's cool seeing the progression and then learning from somebody like Aaron, who's a great sheet metal person, and just his knowledge, he's way up there. It's cool to see you progress and learn from everybody and have those idols that you look up to and stuff.
And that's what strives me to get up every day too, is knowing that maybe one day somebody will look up to me, rather they're older or younger. If I could keep this culture alive as much as I can in our little community, I'm going to do as hard as I can to keep these vehicles out there, because it's a dying culture, and it's a really dying art. So the fact that we're able to at least put a little bit in to kind of keep it alive and keep that spark up.
I'd say it's dying a lot here. I think it's still big in some cities and stuff, but it seems like there for a while we had a bunch of little car clubs that were kind of going towards that custom, and now they've all kind of just died off. It's more, I know we're known as a lowrider town, but it's not always.
And
it's cool to see different stuff. It's cool to see customs, and then I always love seeing what your dad comes up with, or Jimmy, or even Aaron.
Growing up in this community in Albuquerque, I did see a lot of that. All the way down to the Rumbler show. I mean, probably 15 years ago, I was a youngster. Being able to see these guys get together and all different types of styles too, was really cool to see, because little did I know without stick in that scene growing up, but as it comes and goes, there's different, like this last year has been very good for the state, New Mexico or Albuquerque all in general, because of Corey here and sparking up all these cruises and getting these vehicles that are just are like in their own coffin, you know, they're hidden away.
We talked about that, you know, I mean, I had never seen your vehicle, and I'm just like, wow, look at that, and you know, they've been buried or in a coffin, so to say.
Now they have a reason to come out.
There is a reason, and thank you again, Corey, for that, because that's one of the things that we talked about was like, cruise your ship, right? Drive your ship, cruise your ship.
Hey, he's got a shirt on today. Hey, if you'd like to buy a shirt. No, I'm just kidding.
Where's mine?
It's just, I like it because I think a lot of the people have got burnt out on the car show scene. I mean, we have a couple big shows. Super Nationals was really big. Joe's got the Lowrider Super Show, which is becoming its own thing. We're bringing people from all around the Southwest to come to that show, and it's a badass show. If you want to hit a show, that is the show you got to go to.
And it grows every year, and Speaking of show, you
Yeah.
also have a show here.
We throw a little pre-show here, and this is to promote Downtown Showdown, which is a show following day, and Gary Aragon throws that show, and it's also a mixture of customs. A lot of people it's controversy because he wasn't letting in certain style of vehicles, but the main thing of it is that there are different shows for those different style of vehicles.
Yeah. Right.
So this show, he was really trying to narrate down to just customs to get that California style or
and you guys,
vibe or feeling of.
And you guys get guys from all over the Southwest. I think even Colorado, don't you guys?
Yes, we've had Colorado here and Kansas and California, and all these guys are we've watched and seen in big car shows, and and we see them as people that we look up to. And the fact that they're able to come down and look at our work and see our scene is really accomplishing.
And it's gotten pretty big. If you don't, I know this year it was canceled because of all this COVID crap going on, and Gary's show was canceled, and then they actually have an after show at Aaron's usually.
Yes, correct.
And that was canceled, which kind of sucks, but
it was growing.
But it's growing. It's getting big. I remember the first one, there wasn't that many people, and there is some controversy about certain vehicles not being allowed in. And Gary, I understand what Gary's doing. Gary's trying to get that custom vibe, and he not necessarily has anything against lowriders or hot rods or anything like that, or big wheel cars. He's trying for a certain vibe of vehicle, like a 70s show or a late 60s show, that it's these custom vehicles, and that's what it is. It's not hating on anybody. It's just the way it is. You don't go to a Grand National Roadster show and expect to see
lowriders.
You'll see lowriders. Yeah. You'll see more hot rods and stuff like that. Right. So I don't think there'll ever be a lowrider going up for the Grand National Roadster show,
or a rat rod,
or something like that. So it's just each vibe, and it's the same with hot rod guys. They don't want lowriders in. They're trying to keep that genre of cars together. So you want to go look at a custom, you want to go look at a different custom, so you can see the way they are. So they're not just trying to hate on anybody. Gary's a great guy. He puts on a great show downtown at Cecilia's and blocks off a couple streets, has live bands, and it's a really cool show. It's just he's trying to keep that vibe of that 60s and 70s feel of those cars, and
that's how I remember growing up is shutting down streets downtown. Rumblers did it, and just the feeling that maybe if you blink once, they'll be all black and white, and you're like back in time, and that feeling was just something to strive for every time. So that's what really kept me going too, even through the hard times. Is maybe one day we'll be able to go and get all the appreciation from friends and family at these shows with our vehicles, and give appreciation where it's due, as far as other builders out there, because there's just a lot of builders out here in Albuquerque that are all build one-off vehicles, and each show their own personalities, and I think that's pretty cool. Something that you just can't go out and buy. Nowadays these cars are built by the dozen or thousands or whatever, and to see one different and never see that style of car again is huge, because now you might have the only style like that or that vehicle in this state.
And I think we can definitely appreciate you being so young and wanting to keep that alive, just because the younger generation and having my own kids, and I think Corey as well.
Yeah,
everything's electronics. Kids. I mean, we were talking about, when we were doing the podcast with Aaron, same thing with his kids. To know that his kids are not all about electronics. Right. I hate to say it, but it's a dying breed of what we have. So, kudos also to your dad for keeping that alive. For
telling you not to do this.
And you're right. And you having the passion, because you have to be passionate about what you do. I mean, no matter what it is, whether it's building a car, going to a 9-to-5 job, you need to be passionate. I'd say, I tell a lot of people, I tell my kids, there's probably 75% of the nation is just doing a job that they have to do to pay their bills. And you, I think, are one of the lucky ones in doing something that you have a passion for. You're able to make a living out of it.
But it's always not a great thing.
And that's the thing is there is times and where we do lose that passion. My dad has lost his passion for cars because it's something that you get stuck in a loop with, and something that you're constantly doing, and eventually you do get bored of it, or you're like, our minds are constantly going. My mind, and I know I learned it all from my dad, or I got his genes as far as his artistic talents go. We do get to the point to where maybe we want to change something up, we want to do something different. But as far as keeping us going in this direction that we've been going and doing what we love is the vehicles, you know, and the car shows. If it wasn't for the people, then I don't see us still doing this in the future. Right. So it's all about the people that are gathered around these type of cars or this type of car scene, and that's really where we get our motivation and passion for, is being able to communicate.
You were talking about seeing it dying off. Do you think that it is dying off? Do you think? I mean, you see electric cars coming. You see people going. They're not. It is a dying breed. There's not many people doing this stuff anymore, and especially here. I mean,
I know cars are harder to find also.
That, and then the price of vehicles, and some of these cars are just being outrageous right now.
And a lot of it has to do with the car shows that you're seeing on the TV, as far as Gas Monkey and all these other guys that are doing these shows. I mean, yeah, they have a limited money, they have a limited tools, a limited workers and helpers. So when they see these cars and people that are influenced by this and want to build their own car and go to shops, they expect the same thing sometimes. They want it done now, they want it done quick.
Well, they did that one in a week.
Yeah, they did that. Yeah,
That was one episode. They built that whole car. And if you've ever been, and we talked about this with Aaron, and it's about explaining what it's going to take to do this. And I'm sure you do a lot of that same stuff. Yeah. It's going to take me 40 hours to redo the suspension on your car and get the motor set in. And that's just a rough estimate. I don't know what it's going to cost. But a lot of people don't see this. They see it on TV and they're like, oh, he put an engine in 20 minutes.
That was easy.
Yeah. And then they redid the suspension and the car's sitting on the ground. They don't see all the behind scenes stuff. And
it's not as easy
the
as
unlimited
it appears.
money and the sponsors that come in. Oh, they need a new crate LS. We can just shove it over their way.
Get it there within a day.
Yeah. So it's
a
lot of shock for a lot of these people that come in and say, oh, I have a budget of $10,000. I want my car to look like that. And you're just like, no, that's not going to happen.
That's not, and that's a killer for a lot of the people that are wanting to do this. And that's why a lot of these projects are forgotten, because they think it's so easy, and and by visualizing it on TV, they think everything's going to be like that. So yeah, it is kind of dying off. Like that question that you asked, because of that, you know, people they think everything's so easy, and to find these type of shops that are still doing this type of work is what's going to keep this alive. So that's why I strive to keep doing what I do, is because maybe in 10 plus years from now, somebody my age might look up to me or something and say, hey, well, I want to own a shop one day, or I want to start keeping that type of culture alive. And that might continue this car scene and not let it die off.
And by the time you are, you figure you're 23 now. Let's just say 20 years from now. Okay, you'll be 43 years old.
Yeah. So you're gonna be customizing Priuses then? Or?
Yeah. Well, and that's, I guess that's my question is, are you going to evolve with how cars are evolving and talking about electric instead of putting a big block or an LS? Because LS right now is the more modern, right? I mean, I have an LS in my truck, so it's all fuel injected, and carbureted engines are
going to end up
they're going to be obsolete eventually, and your LS is going to be your old school. And then eventually, are you going to be building hot rods that are electric?
So it's funny that you bring that up, is because of course everything will evolve, and everything you will have to adapt, and as we do, and as everybody in this world is adapting to this virus right now, and what we might have to do in the future, we might have to adapt and do what the people are wanting, in the demand as far as engine-wise. Small blocks might end up being the thing of the past. But if you think about it, back then, they were inline stuff, so they were already ahead of their times. They were putting in Hemis out of other vehicles and wide blocks, big blocks, Chevys, and they were swapping all these vehicles with these other types of engines. So as far as in the future, it might still be the same, Either they're going forward or backwards. The fact that they're still putting different engines in these vehicles to keep them alive, keep that heart beating in them. Right. Regardless on what engine it is, at least they're trying to keep these older bodies alive. Nice. And I think in 40 years, when I'm 43 years old, I do hope that I'm still doing 50 style customs, 30s. I might even go older, and bring back some yard art somewhere,
because by that time it's going to be 100 years old.
And Maybe they won't
They're
be
50s.
there,
They're only like 30, 40 years for us, but for you, it's going to be almost 100 years old.
They're ancient.
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah, when
You
cars
mean
are
that-
flying,
they're
I'll
gonna
still
be
be dragging
antiques.
ant heads on the ground. I ain't going up. I want to be down.
Right.
Yeah.
So, you know, I think another thing is we like to have your dad. He's somewhere around here.
Yeah.
We would like to have him and talk to him a little bit.
And see where
Just-
you got your
just-
start from, and
Yeah,
see what
he really
yeah,
thinks about you.
See if you were really a great kid after all or not.
Oh,
or-
I'm not saying I wasn't the best kid, but the car scene definitely saved me from leading into a track that I very well could have been. I know a lot of kids my age
Right.
aren't doing very well, I should
Yeah.
say. Maybe their motive isn't right, and I do have close friends of mine that are not making the best decisions as far as getting in trouble with the law and
Sure.
drinking and driving and stuff like that.
Yeah.
When it came to the cars, I think that led me away. So if this car scene could continue doing that for future youth, I think that the crime rate even in Albuquerque may go down
Right.
because everyone's bored and they just want to go cause mayhem.
Yeah.
So if the cars could
Well,
keep them out like it did
I'd
to
rather
me.
see one of these driving down the street causing mayhem than
And I'd
somebody
not
burning
say I
down a
don't
building or
cause
something.
mayhem, but-
I'd rather see you shooting flames out of the back than somebody burning down a building. So
Right,
it's just a cool thing. So I think we're going to take a quick break and bring your dad in and
Perfect.
see what he has to really say.
Awesome.
Thanks.
All right.
Continue to watch. Thanks for watching
Yeah.
the Boulevard. Hey, thanks everybody for coming back and tuning in to the Boulevard Podcast. We have Joe Martinez from the original owner of JOEZ SHOP. We wanted to bring him on the show, talk a little bit to him about things that he's taught Chris, who is now going to be the owner of the shop, and Joe's leaving the legacy. Father and son show, they're the ones that make all this beautiful work happen. Joe, if you'd like to talk to us a little bit, just introduce yourself, how long you've been in the game, the whole 9 yards.
Yeah, well, I started very young, you know, and a lot of people don't know me. I'm originally from Tucumcari, and everybody knows where Tucumcari is at. It's like a little small town, so here I'm a little small town boy coming to a big city with the big dreams, you know, to build custom cars and lowriders. It was my biggest thing. I'm lowrider by heart all the way, and
Nice.
I was inspired by a lot of older guys as well. Back then, you know, there was just cruising and building your own cars, whatever you had to work with. You know, in small town, you couldn't have a whole lot of stuff to put together, so you had to deal with what you had and mismatch wheels. And
Right.
but it was just an inspiration for me to be into cars, and I didn't realize that I was hooked once I started building my first car. I was like, wow, this is amazing, you know, and you start getting cars built like that. And then from there, you know, I moved here to Albuquerque, and I was really inspired when I started seeing all these lowriders in Albuquerque, you know, well-respected lowriders. There's just beautiful cars out here, and I just never thought I would ever see anything like that, you know, and some of the cars you see in magazines. And so that started off right there, you know, and I said, you know, this is what I want to do. I want to start getting into cars, you know, and meet people. I didn't know anybody out here in this town, you know, and
At the time, he was just a window tinter. So
started off window tinting, yeah.
And
so
that was 90s?
in 1990. I moved out here in
Nice.
1990 in Albuquerque, yeah. And met Rob Vanderslash for the very first time.
Wow.
And saw this amazing guy just sitting in a little small shop at Johnny Photo Shop, and we sat there, and I got to introduce myself to him, and just amazing on the work and the craftsmanship that he did, you know. So I was inspired on doing some graphics design and trying it myself over and over, you know, just doing tapes and screwing up a lot of panels and
Right.
trying it out. You know, it's like, man, how does he do this? How does he do this? You know, it's just amazing. You know, it's an amazing gift. It's not something that's, you know, you just get, it's just handed to you. It comes in your head. And same thing when I do cars. You know, I visualize them first. You know, they're in my head, and I got to get this car. I got to lay it out. You know, it's like, man, who's got a car? You know, somebody give me a canvas.
Has that always been your style, laid out all the time? I mean, obviously, if your passion is lowriders,
right? It's always
they're
been passion.
lowriders for a reason.
As a youngster, I was an artist. You know, I had this gift. You know, this God-given gift of being an artist, and learning skills came afterwards. And I still remember spending my first Bondo and working at a body shop in Tucumcari. You know, started as a dad very young. You know, I was 15 years old when I was a father. You know, and I have 5 beautiful daughters and 1 son. And doing this, you know, kind of puts stalls in your passion of where you want to go in life, you know. So you got to get jobs, you know, you got to start somewhere. So back in the 90s when I first moved out here, I started looking for work and whatever I could find, you know, and got into the glass industry and got into the window tinting, you know, and that's where I started in Tucumcari. So here there was more options, bigger pay, and you had more
And at the time, he was working on a 48 Chevy that him and my mom got married and drove down their wedding day with. And that car is really what led off to
What
all
started
the
all the-
styles that he's been doing, because he's not only repainted that car 2-3 times and he's learned on it. That's when he started getting into the customs and chopping the roof, and that's what led on.
And who are your mentors, or did you just get in there
there's
and try it
there's
out?
quite a few, you know, because I mean, as a youngster, I seen some guys when I was growing up, and I should have been in school, you know, and here I am taking off around the corner looking at this local body shop that was there, and some of these guys were up to no good. Some of them, you know, were good, but when you see them cutting and chopping up some cars and welding up door handles and just lowering these cars with torches and lowering them down and just driving them, and I was just like hooked. I was like, this is inspiration, you know, like they can do this, you know, like wow, look at this car. And then from there on, you know, there was some guys up there. A guy from Jack's Body Shop is what started all for me. You know, it taught me the body, and when I seen him lay his paint down, and you know, I was hooked since then on too. You know, and you start getting to the smell of it. You know, it just before you know it, you're like, man, this is a real body shop. You know, and that's Tom Jimenez. You gotta give thanks Tom Jimenez, who really pushed me into the body work and told me to follow your dreams, and you know, it's out there. You got to go chase it, he says.
One of the things that grabbed me as far as just smelling the Bondo or the exhaust fumes, you know.
That's what, I mean, Rob Vanderslice in the most recent podcast that we did, his daughters, it's just the smell of a clear coat.
Yeah.
That's a memory for her.
Right.
And she's also one that is going to be carrying on, you know, the legacy of Rob, and not so much, you know, being a painter, but as far as carrying on the lowrider style, and that's what she is inheriting, I guess, from her dad to keep that alive.
Yes.
And she's actually your age as well, so that's kind of cool that we have, you know, the younger generation that is keeping that car culture alive.
Exactly.
Obviously, you know, Chris, super talented. When did you see him just have the passion for it and take it? I mean, he's just exploded.
This kid's been good at everything. We put him in football. There he is. He just blows it out of the water. We put him in baseball. Man, he's just knocking it out. BMX, you know, is another thing. He climbed the charts so fast. So we're like, you know what? This kid, there's nothing this kid. And everybody that knows Chris, they're like, there's anything that this kid cannot do, you know? So, you know, it's just amazing. I'm blessed to have a son like him. You know, everybody knows that. And to see him bring the legacy, it's amazing. Like I said, I pushed him out of it, and I said, Chris, I'm going to tell you something. I said, cars, when we build these cars, you're not going to get rich doing it. And there's going to be headaches, there's going to be pain, there's going to be complainers, there's going to be people that ain't happy. It's a nightmare sometimes, but there's days that you just get this customer and just blow their mind. That's rare, but he says, no, Dad, I'm going to do this. He said, I'm going to do it. And I'm like, you've got to be kidding me. I said, man, don't you want to go to college? Don't you want to be a welder? You want to, you know,
and obviously he's passionate about it, because you see these vehicles that are behind us, you see them being built, and as we discussed, you know, in the shows, it's not something that's done in a matter of a week. It's not something that's done in a matter of a month. I mean, like on the TV shows, if you have an army of people that, if you could clone 5 or 6 more Chris's and 5 or 6 more Joes, we could definitely build a car.
You can get
fast,
bigger shop,
you know. But at the end of the day, there are certain things that have to happen in regards to curing Bondo, curing paint.
That's right.
Certain things that have to happen with the metal, you know, when we're fabricating the metal and you're heating it up and letting it cool and putting in engines, trial by error, figuring out all the bugs in the engines to get them to run the way that you want them. Flamethrowers, everything custom is custom for a reason.
Right.
When you say custom, automatically think dollar
You're
signs,
modifying
because
it.
anything
It costs a lot
custom
of money.
is
Yes.
just, yeah.
And
a lot of
setbacks too for a lot of customers. They're like,
Right.
okay, you want to chop this top? Understand, it's not
Right.
going to happen in a week. It's going to take
Right.
a little bit of time
not
'cause
TV time,
It's
exactly.
fabricated. We don't have direction. We don't have, hey, let's open up this book. It says cut here. No, it's all about visual. Stand back. There's days that we sit here for a couple hours just staring at it. Like, I don't know, Chris. Maybe we should go down a little bit lower. No, that is too much. You know. And
Right.
so we have to be on the same page when we
collaborate.
have our same vision, and then that's how we can.
And
make it
experience
right,
has
you
a
know,
lot
so-
to do with it. A lot of the stuff that we've learned isn't, you know, and when we explain to people, they think, you know, oh, where did you learn that? You know, it's not necessarily did we read it somewhere or something. We literally were there and we had our hands in that project, or we were in that situation and that we had to figure out and overcome. And with both of our minds and skill set, we would overcome it and learn from it. So when it came down to the next project or something down the road, we were able to do it a little easier, a little smoother, and keep learning from that. So everything that we've done is really experience, or we've experienced it before, and we're able to perfect it. And that's where my learning comes from him. It's something that he's already been there and done, learned the hard way, and taught me an easier way. So when I learn it, you know, I'm already at a head start, and I'm still perfecting. You know, there's still things I tweak with his normal ways, and that really put me, like you said, ahead of the game for being so young, and it gives me the ability to teach others and keep this, like you said.
And
keep
also
this
every day
culture
we're
alive.
still learning every day. Every day we
Still
learn
learning.
something, and he's like, "Hey, Chris, look what I figured out," you know. And he's like, "Hey, Dad, well, look, I did like this." He goes, "What do you think?" I'm like, "Wow!" I said, "I would never thought to do it like that," you know. So he teaches me, and I teaches him. So you know, it's great
We're always
that
strategizing
he's going to be able
changing it
to.
up.
And so when somebody
this.
comes in, I mean, is it, would you say, being as, you know, this is now becoming Chris's shop, would you say you're more the one maybe welding or under the hood, and a new customer, say I'm a new customer and I walk in, are you, hey, Chris, there's a customer.
Oh yeah, you know what? We're just laughing about
Or
this
is
the other day.
it already
Here's how it works. You know, they come in like that, and I see a customer walk in. You know, and they're like, "Hey, can I speak to Chris?" You know, I'm like, "Yeah, hey, Chris, it's for you." They don't ask for me anymore. You know, that's great, and I love it because, you know, over the years of just doing this, I have to stop. I love to talk to people. I love to talk to customers, and that puts me 2-3 hours out of doing what I'm supposed to,
Right.
and therefore, like, I can get to work now. Now I get to stay under the hood, and Chris gets to go talk to him and go over.
So
it with
Chris, are
him.
you so you're the boss?
Yeah. Oh yeah.
I'm a
definitely the boss.
communicator, I'm CEO,
He's
whatever you may
good.
call it. You know,
He's a
but,
lot more patient with customers than I am, and everybody
Right.
else knows that. And they come out here and they,
And I
I
think-
want to talk to Chris. I don't even want to talk to you. You go back to work, whatever you're gonna do. And I'm like, great.
Communication and people are what's going to end up keeping this alive, and I think that's more important than all of it. You know, I know we could still build our cars, even if it was our own, and doing it just on the side, but the fact that we're still able to help other people build their dreams and become, you know, their dreams become reality, is huge for us. And that's where they come in and they ask for me, is because I'm there to explain and talk, and they see me in the shows or so forth, and they see us out there, and that's where they want to know about where or why or how this kid even learned this stuff. And being able to come in here and pick my brain and know, you know, something my dad's created is something that I look forward to every day, as far as when customers come in and
Right, and that's awesome that you say. I mean, communication is key. In the podcast that we did with Aaron, you know, you're definitely not going to make everybody happy, and you're going to have your bumps and your bruises in business in general.
Yeah.
No matter
Absolutely.
what type of business it is. And I think communication for me, and again, you know, what we discussed with Aaron, for me as being a customer as well in the past, there are, you know, I've had some unfortunate experiences, and all it would have taken was communication.
Yeah, exactly.
As opposed to getting my vehicle back. So I mean, I kudos to builders like yourself, because that is also a dying breed. Everybody's just, you know, what's the fastest thing that we can do? Let's get it in, let's get it out.
Yeah.
But I think communication and also listening, right?
Yeah.
Aaron says that he interviews his, you know, he interviews his clients or new customers that come in. Do you do the same, or?
Yeah, you know, we definitely get a when they come in, we get a a ballpark on where they're headed, what style they want, and of course with the project they're working on, and we see where it's at and how much potential it could go to. So yeah, we do our own type of communication there alone as far as just interviewing. But a lot of the times they ask us to go along with our style, and they tell us, do what you think, what's in your best decisions with what we're doing, because I don't do this like you do, or they don't get the same ideas as we do because we've been doing this for so long. So we do offer ideas, but the same thing, like you're saying, it's one thing to communicate, but it's another thing to listen. And that's what was huge with me and my dad here working together, because this is all of us just beginning to end. Every day we're together, so there's times where he says something and maybe I don't want to listen, or I say something and he doesn't want to listen. So when we do finally sit down and listen and communicate, communication is where we get the most accomplished. So when we listen to our customers, we will stay on the same page. When we have the same, we're on the same page, or when we have the same ideas, then it makes it a little smoother.
And it works great for me. For example, a customer like this, and I come in and say, hey, so what do we think about this color? Nope, I already talked to Chris. We already know what's going on. I say, oh, awesome.
That's awesome. And kudos to you, because that has to, being a father myself, that has to be a super proud moment that you're like,
yes, yeah.
This is my offspring that's carrying on something that I asked him not to get into,
right?
But he chose to take it, and he's soaring. Again, your work is beautiful. And as far as right now, are you taking in any new work, or how far out are you guys?
So right now we are currently a year out, and we're very fortunate and thankful to have that type of clientele and work there waiting for us to get in, because we are booked up. But as far as doing little things here and there, we still get them in and out, because we like to keep these cars on the road, and sometimes it's something so small that's keeping somebody from getting their vehicle to the next car show scene, or car show or cruise. So we do like to help those friends and family and old customers to get their cars out. But as far as big projects, we are not taking anything in for a little while.
Full on builds,
the full builds,
frame off builds.
Yeah, frame off builds.
But if it's say somebody wants to come in and just bag a vehicle, that's something that you guys are willing
we can
to
get them
on.
in between.
So your full on bills is basically where you're a year out.
Correct. Yeah. And we do a variety of everything. We pretty much could touch everything on a vehicle as far as except for the interior. We do anywhere from glass, paintwork, body, to suspension, fabrication, and stuff like that.
Is there anybody you use specific for? I mean, if interior is the only thing you don't do?
Yeah, we do. We sub them out. There's several different shops out there that are doing very good work, but then again, they all have their own time frames.
Right. And most of the customers, they already know the style they want, and they go to.
So that's where you select.
Because the
if
style
it's original or if it's custom, a lot of times we send it to Angel's Upholstery if it's custom, because he has more of that artistic mindset to collaborate with the customer and to get what they pictured.
Nice.
And that's what we do with our vehicles too. Like I said, when it comes to communication, we have to listen too, because if we built it our style 100%, then it would be our car. It would be what we want, not what they want. So when it comes to communicating, and we listen to what the key cues are that they want to accent in the vehicle, and then we'll pay attention to those and exaggerate them, and that way when it comes to the end, they can appreciate the car as if it was their own dream that came to life. Nice. And not just our dream that we built for them.
Right. And as far as social media, are you guys on social media?
I do run.
He's on it. He's got it.
I do run the JoEZ Shop on Instagram. It's _JOEZ_SHOP_. So you could follow us there. I post a lot of the vehicles as we can. We're always busy, so it's hard to keep up with the time.
And so you're on Instagram, not Facebook?
I'm on Facebook under just Chris Martinez.
Okay. And do you have any of your work there?
And I do post some of my work there too, as far as cars that we're working on, or just putting it out there just to kind of spark up the cars again. A lot of times, like what Corey was saying earlier, it is kind of dying. But if somebody was able to see something on social media and be like, wow, maybe make that my goal one day, is to have something like that. Right. And just that little picture could spiral into somebody building a whole custom out of it, or a whole car.
Like inspiring them and inspiration.
And that's what that's what we look forward to.
So obviously we know where to get a hold of you on Instagram.
Definitely.
Is there somewhere that you would like to let everybody know on the podcast to get a hold of you, maybe personally, whether that's by email, phone number, where the shop's located, any of that stuff?
Yeah, if you're looking to just conversate or get some ideas or even get on our schedule, you're more than welcome to come visit us. We're located directly in the middle of the State Fairgrounds off of California Street and Lynn. And if like you're saying, if you want to communicate and just via email because of the whole coronavirus and everything, you could find me at chris.martinez19@yahoo.com. You could email me there at any time with any ideas, pictures, or any of that sort. But yeah, and I know like we're backed up over a year and everything, and it's a lot of it has to come from what this man said, are so high for us. I wouldn't be sitting in this position I am in today if it wasn't for him. So the fact that I was able to learn a skill set that took him over 20 years to acquire is huge because I'm only 23 years old, so I would have technically been doing it all my life to be where he was at. So the fact that he gave me that jump start in this whole business, I think is very crucial to us and being where we're at today.
Well, I appreciate you, Joe, for coming on and speaking with us, and you have a very good apprentice / master at his craft.
Yes.
And we definitely appreciate you, Chris, for coming on the show.
Definitely.
Thank you for inviting us into your shop.
No problem. And thank you for listening. The fact that it takes two guys like you to come out and listen to someone's story and let everyone else hear the story, because not a lot of times does the story ever get heard. And
it gives them a perspective of what goes on in the shop, so instead of just turning the TV on and people like, oh, it's easy to,
and see
it gives you
time.
a perspective of what
and
really goes on behind the scenes.
I guess it's kind of a behind the scenes, if you will. I mean, we don't see you building the vehicles, but people need to know that it does take time, and you're hearing it straight from the people that are doing the work. So that's extremely important.
There's a human behind the scene, it all. It's not just a machine building these cars like these newer vehicles, So it's
But if you guys would like to check out Chris's work, Chris Martinez on Facebook, JoezShop on Instagram. Beautiful work, you guys. If you want fantastic builders, whether you're bagging a vehicle, you need some paint, whatever it is, come give them a gander. They're a great father-son duo. Once again, thank you for having us in the shop. We're going to post some pictures of some of your vehicles. Sure, we can see them kind of in the background, but I'm sure everybody out there would love to see them, kind of the work that you've done in its rawness, if you will. So thanks to everybody for tuning in. That's going to wrap it up here on the Boulevard Podcast, and stay tuned for the next episode, and we'll see you next time on the Boulevard.
Thank you.